And it's going to form part of our conversation for the program and perhaps the rest of the day. But Bukola joins me now as we take a look at some of the things you've been saying on social media of choice is X. And of course, you've been saying a couple of things, Bukola.
Yes, indeed. Quite a number of interesting things to catch up with this morning, Jeffrey, including Lagos State government arresting a celebrant, individuals, events planner, musician for obstructing traffic and constituting themselves as environmental nuisance. There's also an interesting one, Jeffrey, by the way, which is this report about the NDLEA discovering drugs in the house of a senator. And Nigerians are talking about that why is investigation not being carried out and why is the name not being disclosed? But I think the name is out there somewhere. But in the headline, the name of the senator is not
Senator
captured.
Ashiru from, I think, Kwara, they mentioned the name already.
Yes, and of course, the implementation of the increase in salary for judicial officers has been implemented. Well, let's start with that report from Lagos State following the arrest of those who abused the state's laws with their celebrations. So Captain Data is the first user this morning, and Captain Data said, the audacity of these people, lawlessness has eaten deep into the fabric of our society. They were probably like, nothing will happen. This happens in other parts of the state. And at Tokumbo Wahab, that's calling out the State Commissioner for Environment, I believe. We need a platform to report all these lawlessness. Kudos, HC, sir. Yeah, that's from Captain Data.
I don't think this thing is even unique to Lagos. It's across the country.
Across the country.
We like to celebrate, but why would you obstruct? I don't know the full detail of the story, but at the end of the day, the government must do what they have to do. If you're obstructing traffic, you're using your own YOLO to obstruct somebody's movement at the end of the day. Tunde Akerele says, this is absurd. Creating public nuisance in the name of celebration, they should be made to face the full wrath of the law.
And Yellow Jr. says, were they arrested because they didn't take permission from the local government? Are the local governments functional, by the way? And that's why I think that this is just as important as it is the list of our problems right now. But it goes to the heart of the lack of efficiency that we find in local governments. There's so many other areas of administration that the local government is lacking. Management of markets, management of parking spaces. They now have
autonomy now. So
well, let's see how that plays out.
Let's see how it plays out eventually at the end of the day. Yellow Jr. says, were they arrested because they didn't take permission from the LG, or this is not permitted in Lagos Street at all? I have seen this road blockage many times with a letter of authorization from LG posted on board.
Yeah.
The Lagos State government would be in a better position to respond to some of them.
And this is from 36 Kiniu, I believe. And Kiniu is a Yoruba word for a particular animal. I don't want to name the wrong animal now, but as soon as it comes to mind, I would say it. And this one says, I want this to happen in Oshodi very soon. God bless you at Tokumbo Wahab. There should be zero tolerance in Lagos. I believe this is affecting quite a number of Lagosians, and that's why they're speaking up about it. And this goes to the heart of challenge of noise pollution, not just with the obstruction of traffic, but schools situated between in residential areas, churches in residential areas, mosques in residential areas, where people need their quiet and they do not have it.
At the end of the day, the government has to step up through the local government. If they have to do what they have to do to celebrate, then they should obtain the right permit to do what they have so that they are protected by the authorities. Else you will be breaking the law, at least as far as Lagos State is concerned. We understand that drugs were discovered in the residence of a senator who is accusing the NDLEA of corruption, and the NDLEA is fighting back. The back and forth between them, they are saying he's fighting back because some persons were found with drugs in his house. About 3 of them, they were arrested, they were prosecuted. I think they are in jail, and now he's saying they are corrupt. So these are the responses that are coming from you. Amoba says, if drugs were found at the Ashiru residence, was he called in for questioning? Did the aides implicate the senator? Did the quantity of drugs show and indicate intention for distribution? Where was the report published? Good question.
Very good questions. And Mrs. Chidiogo also writes in saying, why is the senator not arrested? At NDLEA Nigeria, you found drugs in someone's house and you didn't arrest him. And we know that the NDLEA, operates in a manner that is not tolerant towards any form of drug, substance abuse, even trafficking. So these are the questions. If the senator has accused the NDLEA officials of corruption and the NDLEA is now only just coming up with this, the question is why?
All right, Mr. Femi, who is their spokesperson, will be in a better position to respond as to how they treated that issue. Ekun says, good work. No one, irrespective of political or social position, should be above the law. It is sad to know that these questionable characters, in your view, are the you wanted to say are the legislators in our land, my guess.
But it's just an allegation. So
it's just an allegation.
We can't conclude. And Ibrahim Jonathan says, if the drugs were linked to the senator, why haven't you also prosecuted him? Why are you just telling Nigerians about this drug dealings now that he's smearing your agency's reputation?
Good question. So maybe when we have them one of those days, they'll be able to respond for themselves. But these are the questions Nigerians are asking. But that's not all. We also understand, of course, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi, the senior advocate, was in Ado-Ekiti yesterday for that convocation ceremony. And he did mention that the 300% increase for judicial officers, because there has been clamor, take care of these people so that to reduce the temptation they have. We have some great people in the judicial system, and we also have some very terrible people that should never have found their way into the judicial system. And they are still there as we speak, causing havoc in that system. But so this is government trying to say, this is what we can do for you, even though people are debating as to the intention. Whether his intention is right or wrong, the most important thing is that they are now earning better than they were earning before. We can now debate as to why government is focusing on the judiciary and all of that. But Dr. D says, while it's good to see improvement in judicial officers' salaries, many Nigerians are asking, what about other sectors? Teachers, health workers, security personnel, and civil servants also deserve fair compensation for their hard work. Equity across the board is essential if we want sustainable growth and a just society.
A Nigerian lens says that is good. Hopefully it will reduce corruption in judiciary. Let's see how it goes. Of course, it will be important to see how implementation is done and how this fast tracks the administration of justice in the country. What about, and I hope, by the way, that this 300% increase in salary percolates down to the support staff in the judiciary.
Judicial officers,
court bailiffs. Yes.
From the CJN, who is their head down to.
Indeed. So how does it, impact upon the work of the judiciary? There's so many cases. The judiciary is bedeviled by cases that haven't been attended to. And in fact, the CJN was speaking yesterday that the deployment of technology, should aid the facilitation of the judicial processes. So we expect to see the congestion of cases at the judiciary, such that we'll see that Nigerians get justice in their quest to seeking redress on the myriad of issues that this cases cover.
For me, I'm just excited that there's improved welfare, but a corrupt person is a corrupt person. If you like, give the person the street. They'll find a way. The penchant for corruption is there. But for some, it may be an incentive to say, at least we're taking care of you, do the right thing. And if everybody gets access to the judicial system like politicians get, I don't know how politicians do it, they get orders, ex parte, injunction, and all sorts like that. Yet, to even get your case in certain courts will take a very long time. And I don't think it's fair. That is not the kind of justice system we want to run.
We should have even mentioned that we hope that it eliminates corruption, which is the big elephant in the room as far as the judiciary is concerned. And, not just among judicial officers, but also among support staff. You want to get your case, you want to file your case, you're being asked, to oil the wheel of progress, or is it justice, as the case may be now. So those are real issues in the judiciary as well.
Let's take Oluwafemi's thought. They said, but the corruption, common Nigerian who doesn't earn close to them is expected to chest the price of the goods in the market and hope for better days ahead, because government have a secret plan they are working on to make things cheaper and better, but they've immediately increased and implemented the salaries of some judicial officers or the judicial officers. I guess that's what you wanted to say. So those, so you see, that's some of the sentiment we get from Nigerians. Some Nigerians are welcoming the idea that it's great to see our judicial officers earn better, because some of these people, their salaries are nothing to write home about. We can go to the police and all of that, but some are also speculating to the fact that politicians are doing this because they want some, what do you call it now, favors from that arm of government and all of that. So everybody has a right to say what they have to say, but we'll stay with whatever we have evidence as far as the law is concerned. But we hope that some of these measures, according to Nyesom Wike, he said it will eliminate, I've forgotten the word he used.
Political interference.
Manipulation, those are the words. Let's hope so. Let's see how it goes and see eventually, because with what we see in our judicial system, and I'm really hopeful that the CJ and Kekereko, she will do the best she can to sanitize some of the bad eggs, all these ex parte. You go to a judge, the judge clearly knows that I don't have jurisdiction over this case, so throwing it out, so striking it out, whatever the term the lawyers use, will still entertain the case and go around this smartly, and then it becomes beleaguered in the justice system.
A matter of forum shopping, perpetual ex parte or injunctions.
We've seen all kinds of things. I don't want to call it forum shopping, for instance, in the issue of River State. We've seen a trend in River State, for instance, that the battle between Nyesom Wike and Fubara, for instance, most of the cases that I heard in River State favors the governor. Most of the cases that I heard in Abuja favors the FCT minister. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that is the trend we're seeing.
That is the trend that we're seeing.
Those are the things that the judicial people and the CJN should look into and all of that. So you see somebody restrained here, unrestrained in another court, and restrained all within coordinate jurisdiction.
And even though the Federal High Court, has jurisdiction to entertain a case from any part of the country, and that is what the law says about the constitution of the court, but when a matter has happened in a particular state, the state high court there is also competent to handle such cases, so that we stop seeing trends of having cases, as you have said, emanating from the Federal High Court and is favoring a particular party in the suit, and that you can put two and two together about what exactly is happening. So those issues must be addressed significantly.
And guys, the reason why we're dwelling on this issue of the judiciary, because we've seen funny things happening in the country. We'll give you an example before we go to our first conversation, which has to do with the state of the nation. And it has to do with the judiciary, because today we expect the Supreme Court to hear that case between the EFCC, the state governors versus the EFCC as to the legality of how the EFCC was constituted. The state governors, our state government, I should say, are arguing that, look, I want to avoid going into the merits of the case, because that's left for the highest court in the land to decide. And we're going to discuss it with our guest. But they're arguing the fact that if you have to bring in, adopt a convention outside the country and bring it into Nigeria, you have to respect Section 12, subsection 1, 2, 3 of the Constitution that says it has to pass through all of the houses of assembly. On the other hand, the government may be arguing the fact that the National Assembly, which created the EFCC, for instance, was created based on provisions that allow them to make laws for the good governance of the state in Section 4, subsection 2 of the Constitution. And then even falling a quoted Section 15 of the Constitution, subsection 5.
Senior Advocate Olisa Gbakoba,
They were disagreeing on certain things, but the whole argument is now this is the first time, or this is one of the first times, ICPC has been tested, I think, but the EFCC is in this particular one to say, okay, if we have to adopt a convention or whatever you deduce this from into Nigeria, did you follow Section 12? Because if it's a treaty and you want to domesticate that treaty, then the houses of assembly have to be involved. So it's almost a challenge on the institution as to the survival of the EFCC, or just to make sure it is properly institutionalized at the end of the day. We don't know what the Supreme Court will decide. But if we go way back, we can remember how they started. The Paris Club and the London Club, when former President Olusegun Obasanjo was just trying to see how they can write off our debt and cancel. And they said, look, as an association, you don't belong to say something action, something. I've forgotten the full name now. You need to belong to all of that. And then it's okay. So the EFCC was just put together just a few days. National Assembly passed it. And now the governors are contending that it can't be passed by fiat, just like constitutional review. It has to go around.
And perhaps
so there's the legality, there's the morality, and there is also the politics involved.
And perhaps it's on the strength of that the Director of Public Affairs of the Commission said yesterday on our program that the EFCC is a creation of the National Assembly. And so in the eyes of the law, it is a legitimate organization. And so the challenge to it is nothing but, the governors who are jittery about the work of the EFCC in the fight against corruption, and that, it's totally unacceptable at this time in the country where the EFCC is needed, to continue with its work in the fight against corruption. So we wait to see how
the Supreme Court will decide. So on one hand, he is saying the National Assembly. So what is the premise of his argument, which I'm sure they will argue in court, is Section 4(2) of the Constitution. Gives the National Assembly such powers, but based on the exclusive list and all of that. But the argument of the governors is based on Section 12. Which says if you are adopting, because it's from, I remember the Financial Action Task Force that Nigeria didn't belong to, that they had to form the EFCC and all of these United Nations conventions and all of that, adopting it so that we can be in that Committee of Nations. So if you have to domesticate that, then it has to be through the National Assembly. And so we're not going to go into the merits of the case. That's entirely up to the courts to decide. But where I was going to with the issue of judiciary and the CJN in focus, because we're also going to talk about the economy. One of the things that is really hurting Nigerians right now is the economy. I want to discuss it with our guests. But while I was talking about the judiciary, it is because of the action of the judiciary that we have 2 emirs in Kano. Action of the judiciary, we have 2 deputy governors, although
2 state assemblies in Rivers State.
So,
and if you even talk about the EFCC and the legitimacy or otherwise of it, we have, an equivalent of that government organization in Kano State, the Kano State Anti-Corruption Commission, which is also fighting corruption. So is that one of the things that will also be presented by the council arguing in favor of it?
I don't know. Let the lawyers do their work. The hearing is today, and afterward the Supreme Court will make a decision, and so we'll rest that case once and for all, and to become a precedent for our law, because it's also a court of policy as well. So we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the state of the nation, from the EFCC to the DSS to the economy. We're going to just a potpourri of conversation, and you're going to enjoy it. Join us again.